Well,
Tom.
hi, nice to meet you, Peggy. First of all,
lovely.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone here at the Port Jefferson Documentary Film Series, once again for putting on a great series this year, and particularly for bringing this film to Port Jeff. And also thank you to Peggy for agreeing to do this Q&A tonight, and everyone else here in the theater who's going to be asking some questions in a little while, for coming out on this very cold night. Peggy, first of all, nice to meet you.
So lovely to meet you and everyone there.
Well, Peggy, as a producer and director, it must have been quite an overwhelming experience to be one of the key people involved in staging this historic conversation between two legends. Can you give us a little background information in terms of what was involved as a filmmaker making this happen?
Okay. Do you want some behind the scenes scary or fun things, or do you just want
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so when I was asked to do this, I work in India a lot anyway in the anti-slavery movement. So I am in India quite a bit, but and I have worked with Arch for 20 years in the anti-slavery movement. He's on our board. So going to His Holiness's compound was just how lucky and what an amazing experience that these two men would come together and we would get to record what they were saying and be able to share it with people. So you need to know, though, we had crews from 4 different countries, hadn't worked together before, right? We had monks running some of the cameras because the Dalai Lama has a team there. And so we brought some people from LA and we trucked in all the equipment from Delhi. And as we were getting ready and setting up a studio there, I was reminded that His Holiness really can't take bright light. That's why he has dark glasses on, or those visors all the time. So you understand you need light to be able to get an image. And so we were trying to do the smallest amount of light to still get an image. And when they joined together to walk in that first day after we were set up, it was, no one could look. We were all like, please, 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 please let the light be okay for this dear man. And it was just a fantastic experience. They met every day for a week, 5 days. And their energy and their love and their profound connectedness and their wisdom, it never faltered, despite the fact that Arch was in between chemo treatments. I mean, he was tired, but you couldn't tell it. It was an astonishing experience.
Many people will get invaluable benefits from watching this movie, but I was wondering personally for you, going through this experience of making this film, you seem like someone who's very committed to social justice, and that the subject matter of your films is very important to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what you went through in terms of what you were feeling when you were making this?
Thank you for that. Well, first I will say that when you take on a documentary, producing or directing any documentary is an act of unreasonable love. It is unreasonable. And this was no exception. And I think that in the long run, the way it impacted me, I will probably not even know for years and years and years, but I do know that the stories they told and the wisdom they shared, a lot of it is ancient wisdom and also learned experience that you have learned, but it got reinforced constantly, right? And watching them, what was on full display is that our humanity is always greater than our differences, if we allow that to be true. And these men are different in many, many ways. One believes that one leads with emotions, The other one doesn't even think they're all that necessary. You should be interrupting them and not having them. You know, they grew up in completely different places, completely different belief systems. But it's out, you know, is it Rumi who says out beyond our differences, there's a field, I'll meet you there. I probably just butchered his quote, but that's what it was like, right? Out, yeah, there are all these differences here, but where it really matters, they are completely attuned, and they share that with us in a way that I find remarkable every time I see the film. And you can imagine creating it, we saw it a lot.
There has been much made about the humor that they share. And I want to ask you respectfully, just as an outsider, what is going on between these two? Like the laughter, I mean, I've seen so many other settings where very important people come together, and I've just never seen two people act anything like this. And I mean it in a good way. I think it's described in the film as they're almost like childlike in their laughter and their playfulness. And I'm wondering, does that come from wisdom, or like, what is it in your opinion that makes them act that way? It's, you know, the two of them. It's great.
Well, I think they would tell you that joy is a choice, right? I think that's probably what the whole film is about in many ways. It's about love and choice. And you know, it started from the very first moment they met. They were we were talking about it one morning. Do you know they were at a Nobel Peace Prize meeting, and Art was walking in front of the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama just reached and knocked his hat off. They just started cracking up, and it kind of never stops. They call each other mischievous brothers, and that shows up in every way, but they're also quite funny with other people. I think, though, that between them, I imagine, and I could be completely wrong, I am only guessing, it must be a relief to be around people who don't, someone who doesn't treat you so precious.
Right.
When in your stature in the world as truly one of the global icons that so many of us love and respect, don't you think it feels good just to be able to tease each other nonstop, right?
Yeah.
It sure comes across that way. And the science around laughter is pretty strong about what it does to you and how it helps you physiologically. I figured they were really, really, really healthy by the end of that week.
Sometimes you hear from filmmakers and they say that they don't know exactly what the film is going to be until they're done going through the whole process of shooting it, and then somehow the themes will come from that. Did you know from the very beginning exactly what this project was going to be? Or did it shape itself as it went along?
We didn't know that we were going to have a project because we went to shoot this to really just record for their archives this meeting, because it was the basis of the Book of Joy. So these were the dialogues that went into the Book of Joy. We didn't have permission to do a film. So we broke every rule because the Book of Joy was coming quickly. This was going to happen really fast, within 3 months' time. Getting legal permission to do a film in 3 months' time between these guys, not happening, right? So actually from Arch, yes, but not from His Holiness's team. And, you know, for good reason. They didn't know me. So Arch did. So we didn't even know if we were going to have a film. And we didn't know if we would have the ability to ever make a film. I didn't get permission to do the film for 2 years. And that was just some things hung up on the Dalai Lama's side. And finally, Arch wrote the Dalai Lama and said, are we going to make this film while I'm on this side of the grass or not? They said, yeah, yeah. And then we started to do it. And then, we had to raise money to do the film, and we had to raise it through all nonprofit dollars, through all donations. And that's because the only thing they asked of me, the only thing they ever weighed in on, is get the message of joy to as many people as possible. Well, with that direction, you have to raise donor dollars, because your first allegiance can't be paying back your investors. It has to be getting it out there and taking deals that you might not typically take, just to live up to get it to as many people as possible. And not only are we doing that with the film, there's some really exciting things starting to happen now around distribution, which I can't share yet, but it will be on our website. But another thing we did, which is crazy exciting to us, is we really got lucky enough to create a global citizen science project, which is crowdsourcing science, right, about joy. And I asked a scientist about it on one night. One day I emailed her. The next day she emailed back. She had UCSF, Berkeley, and Harvard on board to do this citizen science project. And it's now available, actually. It's something you do online for 7 days, takes a few minutes a day. And you will actually find out what are the things that really work for you around joy. What are these micro actions you can take? And at the end of the week, you get basically a very specialized prescription on what works best for you. And we get to expand science at the same time. So
one of the amazing things to come out of this movie, and I guess the book, and all the work of everyone involved here, is that there seems to be, maybe for the first time in history, this coming together of different religions and science, all for a common goal. Can you tell me what you learned personally from your interaction with so many different people in this area?
What I learned is that I think what I learned is the things we already know to be true are true, right? Ancient wisdom tells us to the kindness is the way to go. That gratitude is the way to go. That changing your perspective on things, like, if you think it's good or it's bad, you're right, right? Ancient science in our life, ancient wisdom in our lived experience tell us these things. And it just so happens that now neuroscience and leading edge science goes, oh yeah, that's true. So they're all working together, right? And I loved having that reinforced. What you think is true, it's completely settled in your mind. It's like, okay, this is up to me. Joy is an inside job. Joy and sorrow are inseparable. What gives us the greatest joy, like the mother lode of joy, is our deep connections, the people we love and who love us. You can do all these other things to gain more joy in your life, and they work. They absolutely work. And if you want to jumpstart it all, look at your deep connections and tend to those and pay attention to those. And you see, that's what the holy men are talking about all the time. That's what they do.
That's great. I know there's some people here that want to ask some questions, but I can ask you one more. When you're making a film, there's a lot of downtime when you're setting up and changing things around and all that. You must have had some unique experiences to legends, and I was wondering, was there anything that didn't quite make it into the film that's just a personal memory of yours that you're willing to share with us? in terms of something that you witnessed or experienced with them?
Okay, so there's around His Holiness, he is so revered that people are just so careful, right? And you think about it, he's their spiritual leader. He's, in many cases, when we were working there, he was their boss. All kinds of things are happening. And he would say, I just am one of 7 billion people. I don't like being treated differently. I am just another person. And but I was witnessing it happening a little differently, right? So I asked someone on his team. So he says he just likes to be, one of the guys, but he's so revered that he's revered within an inch of his life, right? I mean, how does that work? And I'm not being disrespectful here. Okay? I'm actually mirroring what he says. Okay, so please don't be upset at me for if it sounds disrespectful. That is not my intention at all. And so at one point, they said, well, first, he's our leader, he's our boss. He's our spiritual leader. Of course, we're not going to be informal, but you could be informal around him. So I had to go, we were getting ready to shoot again, and Arch was sitting there and his jacket was riding up, and I was adjusting Arch's jacket, and Arch and I have teased each other a lot in the past. And so I stepped back, and the Dalai Lama is sitting right there, and they're sitting next to each other. And I stepped back and I said, Arch, you look really handsome. And he goes, oh, thank you. And he starts to giggle. And the Dalai Lama was watching just because he's waiting. And I look over and I said, you look handsome too. And he goes, come here. So I go over and I bend down in front of him. And he goes, thank you for telling me I'm handsome. And I said, don't worry. And he goes, but I have to tell you, you can't have me. I'm a monk.
Oh, that's great.
It was just so funny. I'm like, okay. Let's roll tape, everyone.
That's wonderful. All right, so if there's anyone out there who would like to ask a question, I think Wendy asked if you're willing to walk forward, or if you don't feel comfortable, you can just ask your question out loud. Anyone?
How long? I don't want to be on camera, excuse me. But I'd like to know.
Me either.
Then you understand, thank you. What I'd like to know is, I did miss the opening credits, so maybe I missed something you explained. How many days did it take to film this? This looked like it took place over just a few days.
We were in Dharamsala or McLeod for 9 days. We shot with them 5 days. And then last June, the June before, June 2020, we went into production, which means we raised all the money. And we went into production and shot those other interviews, like with Jimpa and Impa and Doug, and shot maybe another 16 or 17 days, but not with the Holy Men. In the meantime, we were getting all of that archival footage together. And I don't know if you guys noticed. Did you see the Dalai Lama walking up the hill in other mountains in Western clothes? That came about. No one had ever seen that video before, filmed before, because our team member said to me, well, I wonder if they have some like some wooden box, like an old trunk of film. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I'm sure they did. And so I asked, they did. And that film of him walking in Western clothes, and a lot of the other film, that hadn't really been seen before. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer I did answer your question, but I went on a long time about other stuff. I apologize.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question?
I'll do it.
Have you had any reaction from Arch or His Holiness about the film? What are the reactions to it?
I'll cry. Art sent video thanking us for it. I was supposed to be in South Africa to show it to him. But my mom got really ill and I stayed home with mom, but my colleague Doug Abrams, who wrote the Book of Joy and he's like my brother from a different mother, he went and got all kinds of video of him watching. And then His Holiness's team said that when he watched it, he came out and said, you know, oh, everyone should see this. Like he was encouraging everyone around him to see it. And then we got them together on a Zoom. And after they had watched it, and they watched some of it together, and then they talked about it. And they were just really happy with it, which, you know, makes it all worth it. It was worth it anyway. It makes it even better. It keeps the smile going for a lot longer.
Any other questions? One thing I wanted to ask you was about the animation. I thought that was a really nice addition, the animation in the film. Can you tell us a little bit about how you incorporated that into the
Oh,
movie?
I think you're gonna love this. So we had to do animation because Arch, the oldest photograph we can find of Arch, he was 19. And so if we were going to tell anything from his childhood, we had to animate, right? And if we animated there, then we had to animate some from His Holiness just to keep it equal, right? And so then a friend of mine, I was telling a friend of mine, here's what I know about animation. I don't know enough. It's expensive and it takes a long time. And my friend said, oh, I have someone you should talk to. And this person called me and said, okay, I'll help you out. I hadn't had time to look her up. It was Darla Anderson. She's won 2 Academy Awards, one for Coco and one for Toy Story 3.
Wow.
And she volunteered for 2
Wow.
years, as did another a great star in the animation world, Damien de Froberville. And they made that happen. And if you know, they work in the world where animation's $1 million a minute or more.
Right.
All this happened for $70,000. So, and I love that animation. It feels really good to me. And I love the spirit behind it and the teams around the world that worked on it. It was great. And the music also, can I tell you a little bit about the music?
Yeah, please do.
So the composer of the music, someone I've worked with off and on for 30 years, he's won like 14 Emmys. He said he worked harder in this on anything than anything he's ever worked on. We had musicians from 5 different continents working on this. Now remember, it's all during pandemic, right? So, and he was so careful. His name is Dominic Messenger. He was so careful that he worked with the Smithsonian, a musicologist there, to get these ancient rhythms and ancient melodies so that they would be correct. He would get them on the right instrument, have right, you know, people from Tibet playing and the Soweto choir, and then sometimes you would hear Tibetan music with Tibetan instruments, and then it would change. It would be the same tune, but with Western instruments. And if you listen to the song on the credits, it starts off, it's the Dalai Lama, at first. And then there's basically a call and response between the Tibetan singers and the Soweto choir. I love what he did. It's fantastic. And if you can imagine doing that all remotely, how difficult that can be.
I agree. I love the score and all the music. Is there going to be a soundtrack that's going to be available to the public? Hopefully.
You know what? You are the third person in a couple of days who has said that. Yes, we're going to figure that out. We haven't figured it out yet, though, but we will.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Just go ahead.
First, thank you for that wonderful film. Could you tell us a little bit more about the orphanage, what organizations behind it, when it was founded, how many children were there?
Oh, the Tibetan Children's Village?
Yeah.
Ah, it's an amazing place, isn't it? There are several of them throughout India. And what happened years and years and years ago is that the Dalai Lama said, once it was clear that children in Tibet could not get a Tibetan education anymore, he said that if children got to him, he would take care of them, educate them, house them, feed them. And he has done that. And that the Tibetan Children's Village that we were at is maybe 10 minutes away from the Dalai Lama's compound. And they just do an astonishing job. The children are so well educated, and they often go off to these other great schools. One child who was in there, who I just happen to know is an amazing woman here in the United States now. She went off to Stanford and then Oxford, I think. And you met Jimpa in the film, who was Oxford or Cambridge. He teaches at McGill. So what they do and those children, what they learn is truly astonishing.
How many children are there?
Yes, how many children are there?
In that one, I think there are 800 kids in that one.
If I could ask you, I know the words that they were speaking throughout the film are universal, but it just so happens that this movie's out now during this pandemic, and I've watched some of the videos that you've put out related to the film, and I can see people are, just because of what's going on, thinking about how their lives have been hurt so much by everything that's been going on with COVID. And I was wondering, as you show this film to different groups, and you hear people constantly bringing up what's going on all around the world right now with this pandemic, are there any things in particular that maybe people here might want to hear from you in terms of what they can take away from the message of this film that could be helpful?
What a lovely question. Our world is so thirsty for joy these days, right? I think we're always thirsty for joy, but with the pandemic, with polarization, with climate, people are weary and they're sad, and we know that before the pandemic started, health officials were calling the anxiety and depression that was skyrocketing among young people like a double tsunami. So that was before the pandemic. So those numbers have only gotten worse. And I hope what people take away from this, because there's many, many levels that you could choose to go after. If nothing else, I hope that if you sit and you hear these dear friends laugh and tease each other for an hour and a half, I hope that makes a difference in your world. If right then and there, you just feel better and find some bright light for yourself, for if only for a few minutes. The next thing I hope happens, if you want to go a little deeper with that, is that what they say rings in your head and in your heart when you need it, right? That joy is a choice. That the first person you help when you're kind to someone else is yourself, right? And that's science and that's ancient wisdom, right? That gratitude will make you happier. That changing your perspective, right? You remember that the Dalai Lama has to be the king of changing perspective in the world. Yeah, I was run out of my country. It was tough, but actually I like being a refugee, right? Do you see Arch keeps going, yeah, but dude, really? He's going, no, really. So I hope that their words echo in your soul when you need it. I hope that happens. And I hope another thing that happens is that people can either go to missionjoy.org, you can send notes to the holy men, you can write your own joy stories. But I really hope that people go, it's missionjoy.org, but /big joy, and come play with us and do this week of probably 7 minutes a day, and see how you feel, see how that impacts you, what you can learn from that when you practice having joy, even in the face of really difficult times. And that's not always easy, as you could see from the holy men. But one of the reasons it was great for them to deliver that kind of message is because you can't say, oh no, you don't understand. You don't have it. It's like, oh yeah, actually they do understand. And I think that's a great message for us to hear. It's a comfort. It's you learn, we're a masterpiece in the making, right? And that's a journey for us. And it's a journey worth taking. So I don't know, I'm not asking for much.
Well, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you tonight. And thank you so much for making this film, which I think is going to make a world of difference for so many people. And I think everyone's excited to see all your future work. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And may I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I just have to say thank you for your kind words about the film, and thank you for taking the time to see it. And thank you, Wendy, for all you did and all the conversations we had before this. But I also, it takes an entire village or maybe a county, or I don't know, to do a film. And we just had a great team because these men have their own gravitational force and people wanted to be involved. So I get to talk to you about it tonight, but there are 80 people who could talk to you about it tonight who were really involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peggy. It was such a pleasure to spend this time with you after your wonderful film. I hope we get to meet again or see each other again, maybe in person in the future.
I would love that.
Wish you all the best with the film. I can't wait to see where it's going. And everybody have a joyful Thanksgiving.
Oh, thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.